July 4th this past year, we were jet skiing out on the water with some friends, and again, last minute trip. And my foot got caught up in, well, my leg got caught up in the jet ski rope, and I fell off, and my leg got tangled, and the jet ski kept going, and the slack ran out of the rope, and it severed half my leg off right there in the middle of water, in the middle of nowhere. I didn't know it, didn't realize it, bleeding out under the water for multiple minutes before I tried to get back on the jet ski and realized I couldn't step up. And then once I pulled my leg out of the water, it's really when, all hell broke loose. I took a very brief 10-second calculation of what is happening and what needs to happen in order to get me to the hospital alive. I knew two things. I knew if I passed out or I went into shock, my chances of survival go down substantially. So in order to not do that, I just started directing traffic and assigning people roles. Here's what needs to be done. Here's what we got to do.
Hey, Rebel Rootzers. I am so happy to bring another badass female into the room with me today. I got introduced to her through a mutual friend, and once I heard just a little bit about her story, I couldn't wait to introduce her to you guys. So please help me give a warm welcome to Katie Guillory.
Thanks for having me.
Katie, I'm going to let you kind of give us your backstory story just with LSU and how you got there. I loved to kind of dig into, I think, as we grew up as kids, we kind of already knew our faith. And I always love to ask my guests if there was something growing up, like when you were 5, 6, 10, 13, that you're like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be looking back on it now.
Yeah. The answer for me is really not that much as to like what I was supposed to be doing as much as it was where I felt like I was supposed to be. I grew up, small town, Louisiana, and although I probably don't sound like it right now, my entire family sounds like they're from swamp people. And that's my family, and they're huge, and they're Cajun, and they're coon-ass, and we do all the things that people make fun of us for. But I spent a lot of time away from home in the small town, if you will. And, I started being an LSU fan and bleeding purple and gold for as far back as I can remember, and, played multiple sports growing up. Found out that I was really good at softball. So once high school hit, I really specialized in softball. And nowadays I understand that's pretty late for people, but, I enjoy playing multiple sports and being at least decently good at a few, and just different cultures and meeting different people. And that was always fun to me. But then honed in on softball. And then lo and behold, God's intervention landed me a spot on the LSU softball team in 2008. And, ever since then, that kind of started my journey, and had, a lot of knee injuries and physical trauma while I was a student athlete. Had a great experience otherwise, though, and I think that's what has made me to just put such an emphasis on what we're made up of as human beings, the intangibles, and that's a huge root as to a foundational element as to what goes into my coaching now. So I graduated, went around the country, decided I wanted to be in strength and conditioning. Originally got on the private sector in Baton Rouge and decided that wasn't for me. I wanted to be back in the college realm. Did what I had to do, landed a spot in Virginia at Liberty University for 4.5 years. After that, I moved on to the University of Illinois for just over 3 years. I called my mentor, who was still at LSU at the time. She was there on my recruiting visit when I was 17 years old, and was still there as a director, and called her and said, hey, I kind of want to get out of college athletics. Is now the time? What's your opinion? And she kind of was very vague and very hesitant and said I wouldn't do that just yet. And I said, okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down. And she said, I'll call you in a few months, and called me a few months. There was an opening at LSU. Thought I would be a great fit to return home. The only caveat was it would not be working with softball directly. So that was a decision as to if I was ready to give up the sport that I felt like had given so much to me in my life. And I decided to do it. And unbeknownst to my family was not a part of the decision. They did not even know that I was part of the interview process. They didn't even know I was interviewing an hour down the road from them. And I didn't inform them until after the decision was made because I wanted it to be a professional decision that was not, I loved them to death, but that was not smothered by their influence of just wanting me to be back home. And yeah, the rest is history. So I've been back now, and now my boss, who I share an office with, has known me since I was 17 years old. And yeah, we've been through thick and thin together, and she's always been a mentor of mine. So I've been back at LSU now coaching gymnastics and beach volleyball for 4 years.
I love that. I mean, that's like a full circle, almost,
Full circle. Yeah.
Left town, and then your mentor is now, you're working side by side in the office. Tell me a little bit about that, because I've never had that experience to where I'm working in the same office with my mentor. Like, I'm assuming it's like good, but I mean, this is your mentor that you're working with. So is there a good dynamic? Are you teaching her some new things along the way, or tell me about it just a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, it's always going to depend, right? I just think I'm lucky enough that she thought highly of me as an athlete to call me to come back, right? I just think we now have 3 different phases of our coach relationship, right? One was when I was an athlete and she was my strength coach. The other one was when I decided I wanted to get into this back into college, and really did it without a lot of her help on purpose, because I didn't want people to think that I would get any job out of, the LSU logo and having her behind my name. Of course, she's a reference, but like, I tried to just cast a wide net of people and make a name for myself outside of LSU, So we had the athlete strength coach relationship. We had the just kind of fresh out of college / like, I want to get into this relationship. And then, she was a mentor of mine. That would be a somewhat frequent phone call multiple times a year to just talk shop, see what she's doing, see how things are going, check in. And then now a relationship where we work alongside each other in a lot of capacities. And she's a great, patient, understanding, very humble director. She is very good at navigating people and situations and mediating issues and understanding how to best solve any solution we need solved. And just like any director would, she's not always going to get it right, but there are situations that she over communicates with me on, and I take up the opportunity to dive in a little bit deeper because it's a learning experience from the admin side of things. Other things are, maybe from her end of, hey, you got this new certification. Like, how do you think it has helped you in your career? Do you think it's worth it? Just looking for feedback either from myself or for someone else who's asking. So, that's part of what our profession is. And the good thing about LSU is we're so large in terms of the amount of strength coaches we have in total across campus and athletics. The bad news is that we are so large. So it's a blessing and a curse. And after COVID, LSU kind of chose the siloed route. And what I mean is, like, baseball has their own weight room, softball has their own weight room, basketballs have their own weight room. So it really does become a conscious effort to see each other and talk to each other. Like, there will be, 7 to 14-day periods where I don't see her at all. And, when I do, I understand we still have to work, but we're trying to like catch up, either on just life or what's been going on, or talk through some things, or asking for advice on some kid I'm having issues with, or training style, if she's ever had experience with, or books that I'm looking to read and in which I would advise her recommendation on, So it's been really cool. It's been humble, and I really enjoyed it. She's been a rock for me in a lot of highs and lows throughout my career and life, really. But really in the past 4 years, she's seen me at my adult best and adult worst, and she still has shown up for me every day and has supported me and going above and beyond in a lot of ways to help me professionally in person. So
I love that. So now that you're on the other side of that, obviously you had a strength and conditioning coach and a coach while you were playing softball with LSU. Now you're on the other side of that, where you're the one that's coaching the athletes. Do you think that you have changed your style being on the other side of that? Or do you think maybe it's a whole different way? Maybe the athletes that is now up and day is a whole different league to where you were. You know, we always say back in my day. Is there a back in your day that you talk about?
Oof. Dang, all of it, honestly. That's a very dynamic question because yes, you want to change and evolve with times and I say that with what technology has to offer us insights on and different pieces of equipment that didn't exist back then that is not now such an adequate part of training, you know, that it makes sense in terms of how science has evolved and how our field has evolved for the better. And a lot of it can now be objectified more than ever. And I enjoy that. I geek out over that. I nerd out of that. Now, the realm of age of athletes I work with still hasn't changed. They're still 18 to 21-year-olds. Sometimes you run into like 22, 23, if we call them grays. But that age group, that will never change. So as I continue to get older, that age group will never change. But you have to keep that in mind and continue to stay relevant in the way that you communicate with them because that's all part of your buy-in process, right? But you also have to take account of the percent of like how 18 to 21-year-olds in their attitudes and their efforts innately are different than where they were 2 decades ago. You know, because now NIL exists and now there's more pressure and now there's more money and there's more facilities and there's better equipment. So like all of that takes a toll one way or another. You know, the wheel always keeps turning, but it does evolve and change. And you can't be so naive to totally disregard that. You know, now our objectives still remain the same. And that is to keep the athletes available. That is to make them faster. That is to make them more explosive. That is to honor the sport and what it needs and in terms of trainable qualities and attack that year round, you know? So that I enjoy. And above all else, you know, I can't lose who I am in the way that things have evolved. I know what I bring to the table. I know that you're going to hear me before you see me. I'm going to bring as much energy as I possibly can. I'm going to be that female strength coach that's like yelling and screaming out of either like a height woman or in your face, like you need to shut up and do this. And not in a way that's risky, but when I, especially working with females now, like when I can sense self-doubt and we work a lot on confidence. And when those two things meet as an opportunity to gain confidence and all you've known is self-doubt. And now I've created a situation for you to get over the hump and they don't know how to, or they don't want to get over that. But that's part of the intangibles in my job. Like the best transferable quality I can give you to your sport above anything else is courage, you know? So like, I want you to be able to be confident. And in order to do that, you got to have 3 seconds of courage to do it. So it's been fun. Like, I don't get mad at them for self-doubt. It's all learning opportunities. Right. But in the moment when we got to roll and like, this is what the day is about. And you get to that point and you want to pull back and I'm not going to let you. I will get in your face and I will encourage you and I will hype you up. And if we need a chest bump, we need a chest bump. If you need to push me down or you need to slap me on the back and go, like, we'll do it. You know, I'm that person. So I like a highly energetic, chaotic, controlled chaos, environment. So.
Every coach is known for something. Are you known for something like either a saying or a word, like you're like, I made this exercise. This is my signature. Do you have something in the books yet?
Before my most recent injury, I would think that people across sports and across institutions could probably say my biggest saying always is earn, never given. So we're going to outwork your talent and we're going to earn it every day. And if you win, great, we got to earn the next win. And if you lose, great, we got to earn the next win. And that's just a part of enjoying the process and teaching them how to do that and fall in love with the discipline and the habits that you create along the way to make yourself successful.
So I have 2 questions. The first one is you mentioned NIL. Did I say that right? Because I'm never in there. But
NIL. Yep.
Okay. So if that was back when you were an athlete, what would be your thought on that?
I try not to we talk all the time, me and some of the old coaches who were alumni, about, we try not to get bitter at the kids, it's not their fault. It's really not.
Right. It's not.
But it makes you angry when it changes their perspective and priority. It makes you angry when they blow the money away, it's those things that I think, it's not to say that our system has failed them, because you're always going to have a few that just don't get on board and don't get it, right? And I will say, do I think that athletes deserve to be compensated or have the opportunity to be compensated more so than just a scholarship or cost of attendance, which we didn't even have that. We didn't even have a dining hall either. So all these things that add up, from the financial side of things, whether that's actual money given to them or things that are given to them that take place, a cash trade, if you will. All these things we didn't have. We just want to kind of shake them and look what you have. And I hate to bring up the past. I try not to do it because it's not relevant to them. They don't really care, but there is this mentality that I think we had, and I say we, I mean majority of the athletes back then that were just dog eat dog, and you're going to do it because you love making a sacrifice. Now, would I have loved to have extra money in my pocket and not have ended up with putting my family in debt and me in debt? Yes, absolutely. So I think it's the right thing to do. I hate that it's come a decade and a half too late for me personally, but I do see the value in it. In my humble opinion, I think the NCAA got rushed into passing that legislation faster than intended due to COVID. And I think there wasn't enough bylaws in place to make it standardized across the board. And it became the Wild Wild West. And I think it's gone way too far for them to take it back. And I think it's biting people in the butt. It's pissing people off. And again, it's got people who take advantage of it, provides great opportunity. It's a recruiting advantage. But I don't think it was as intended in the beginning. And the thought of it, I don't think it was as intended to be this much of a Wild Wild West. But I think it got rushed into the decision, and they got rushed into passing the legislation because of COVID. Some of that is facts. Some of that is just my humble opinion of how the story kind of affects each other. So
now I'm just curious to say, all right, you mentioned just a little bit earlier about a recent injury. And I kind of want to wait until about halfway to the segment before I asked you because of all your other things that you have gotten to do along the way. And, just you being LSU on the coach, that's super cool. So, but go ahead and kind of fill us in on this recent injury.
Yeah, since 2010, since my junior year in college, there has not been, I did the math on this one time. It's either 18 or 20 months. There has not been an 18 or 20 month period that I've not had a surgery. And July 4th this past year, we were jet skiing out on the water with some friends. And again, last minute trip. And my foot got caught up my leg got caught up in the jet ski rope. And my buddy that was driving brought the jet ski up to get the nose of the jet ski over a wake from a huge wake boat that had never passed in a narrow canal like that before. And I fell off and my leg got tangled and the jet ski kept going and the slack ran out of the rope and it severed half my leg off right there in the middle of water in the middle of nowhere. And I didn't know it, didn't realize it, bleeding out under the water for multiple minutes before I tried to get back on the jet ski and realized I couldn't step up. And then once I pulled my leg out of the water, it's really when, all hell broke loose. And I saw the severity situation and I took a very brief 10-second calculation of, what is happening and what needs to be done and our time frame and our location and what needs to happen in order to get me to the hospital alive. And we did that, and the people who were with me crushed it. And I will say they were a huge, huge part in not only saving the rest of my leg, but I think, there's small chance when you're out there and you don't have resources. And we had to make a homemade tourniquet and, flag down some strangers and Yeah, and basically got rescued, and the helicopter picked us up and brought me to immediate surgery and tried to save my bottom half of my leg and couldn't, and then had to amputate. So July 7th was my amputation surgery on the lower half of my left leg.
I cannot even like imagine that you're thinking, you said a 10-second process on that to looking down to your leg and then trying to assess that. I mean, to me, I would think in that situation, you would just been passed out. And like, I know I probably would have. And
Well,
down and
it's
you're just like,
funny.
oh my God.
In the 10-second calculation, this is what happened. It's funny you mentioned that, and you're not the only person to ask. I knew two things. I knew if I passed out, or I knew if I went into shock, either from a loss of blood or not, that my chances of survival go down substantially. Because then I become a huge liability to the people I'm around, and I'm not a help to them. So the process gets slowed down. I become more of a liability. I can't hold my own tourniquet in place, so I continue to bleed out. So all these things cross my mind. So in order to not do that, I just started directing traffic and assigning people roles. Here's what needs to be done. Here's what we got to do. Get me on the boat, flag those people down, call 911, tell them this is where we are, tell them this is where we're going. And it just kept me in check in order to do that. And oddly enough, by the time I got to the helicopter, they replaced the homemade tourniquet we had with a real tourniquet. And when they had to take that one off and put the medical grade one on, it wasn't even bleeding anymore, because we had done such a good job of clotting the blood up in two different places that the blood vessels restricted so much that it actually kind of cut its own circulation off. So that was a very good sign.
And this is so recent. Like I'm sure you're still processing this, right? But from what I've seen is that you've just taken this and turned it into such a bigger opportunity and a goal. And I heard through the grapevine, you're training maybe for the Olympics. Did I hear that right?
Yeah. Two things come to mind of that. I think a lot of people have reached out to me in the amputee world, and yes, I'm still processing it. I'm also such a logistical and practical person that like, I don't like to sulk on things. Not that I miss it in terms of like understanding and reflecting and what effect that has on me, but I'm always thinking about the very next step. Like, what's the next step? Not 18 steps above me. I'm also going to sit on and sulk about what I don't have anymore. And the reality is that my leg's not coming back. That's 100% guaranteed. So I have to accept that. So the faster I can accept that, the faster my mental health puts you in a position to move on. And one of my good friends now, Allie Truitt, quoted it perfectly. And she's like, one of the hardest things I've ever had to convince my mind of was that losing my leg would be one of my greatest strengths. And I heard her say that a few months ago, and it really hit me hard. And I think out of that, it's birthed this movement that I am about now, and that's the relentless pursuit. Is that nothing will keep me down and nothing will stop me. And, I've been a person that's really defied all odds athletically my entire life. So now I'm at my biggest disadvantage. Like, now I'm the most motivated to do it, So it's been funny because I've been reading books with multiple people around the country and at the same time. And one of these books I'm reading is just based on desire and like understanding your biggest and truest desire and how you feel so pulled to do that. And like, how outrageous that's got to be that there's no way that it could possibly happen without divine intervention. And like, that's how big I want to dream. And will I make it? I have no idea. But I think today is that you caught me on I've already had a breakdown today. And that's because I just tore my right meniscus a few days ago. And I'm pretty much at this point stalled in training. I'm like wheelchair bound at home. And the only good leg I have, I can't really put pressure on. But staying in the prosthetic all day and putting all my pressure on my amputated leg is causing blisters on that side. So it's just this, you got to consciously try not to get caught up in what you don't have or what's going on. And it's taught me a lot about my mindset. It's taught me a lot about, am I who I want to be about? Am I who I say that I'm about? And these moments of adversity and these moments of setbacks, I've been through setbacks my whole life. I've had 7 knee surgeries, a hip surgery, and now two amputation surgeries. So it's just another month in the book of Kate Guillory. And I don't mean that in pessimistic, like I'm numb to a type of way. I mean that in a way of like, this is just another month. Like, it's literally no big deal. You just got to figure out a way to get through it. And, and people have expressed extreme sympathy towards me, and I appreciate that, but I also don't want them to pity me either, because I'll figure it out. That's life rule number 3. And, that's what we've been doing for my whole life and 8 months. It's just over 8 months now. So
what do you find is I don't want to say the worst thing, but like, someone comes up to you. Do you, I always hear from someone who's disabled, there's like, just say it out front. Like, don't hum around it, like just be upfront and ask your question. Are you kind of the same way, or you're just like, you know what I mean? Like, how do people are supposed to approach it?
That's a good question. I'm not a person that takes a lot of things to heart ever, because the thing is, everyone's going through something hard, and everyone's trying to make a comeback through something in their life at any point in time. So if you could just remember that, then it really costs nothing for you to be kind to that person. And I think meeting them halfway and helping them navigate, because I remember a long time ago, I used to have a teammate, her brother was disabled. And I remember walking with her in the grocery store, and I saw a person in a wheelchair, and I was like, oh, I feel so sorry for them. And she was like, don't feel sorry for them. Like, they're making it. Like, they're actually crushing life right now in a world that's not meant for them to survive in. And like, that statement changed me, and it sat with me. And even now, like, I have a mobility impaired disability card, ID card, and I am that person. And I've gone out in public in crutches and my wheelchair and with my prosthetic on, without. And there's been anywhere from like older people that should know better to ask things, and it's a little bit abrasive. But I just think part of it is they've never been educated on how to ask or how to approach people. The other part of it is like kids, they'll just come up to you and like, they stare at you and they point, they're like, what's that? And that don't bother me. I think some people it does, some disabled or amputees, it might, and some days it does make me sad a little bit, but I'm never mean to a human or a kid ever. I was at Mike the Tiger's cage the other day, and some little boy, I saw him looking at me, and he looked back at his dad, and I lost sight of him, looked back at his dad, and he was like, Dad, look. And I knew he was pointing at me. And I turned around, and I can see his dad just like didn't know what to think,
Mortified.
Yeah, like he didn't know how I would react, because a kid's being a kid. And again, I have to understand that perceptually, like, it's not the kid's fault, and it's definitely not the parents' fault. The kid sees something he's never seen before, and I
so
started.
What do you
just
do
like,
in that situation? Did you go approach him, or did you let him?
Oh yeah, I looked at him and I was like, "Hey, do you want to touch it?" And he was like, "Oh yeah," and he was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I was like, "Yeah, it's so bionic. I'm like a transformer." And I started like jumping up and down, and he was like, "Whoa!" And he was like, "Does that thing make you fast?" And I was like, "Yeah, I actually just got done running the track. You want to race?" And he was like, "Yeah." So we had fun right there. And his dad, I think, was grateful for it, and that's just another learning opportunity. Like, either that kid hopefully won't forget that for a while. You go to school and be like, I met this girl with a bionic leg, and they don't know, or his dad, having an opportunity to maybe tell his kids like, hey, this happened today, and I want you to know, like, not all people are equal. And, that it just doesn't bother me, because I'm not insecure about it in any way. And I think there's a way to handle everything. And as long as you're not completely rude to me, I will always give patience with that, always.
Did you win the race?
We only took a few steps. The problem is, I was in my running blade at the time. The problem is, we're in a very short distance, and I can't hit the brakes like I would with a normal foot. So I need some run weight to decelerate. And I didn't have that. So I just kind of limped and like let him win. And I was like, dang, you are faster than me. So, well.
So I was wondering which way that go, because it was still both a good lesson either way, whether you kicked it fast or whether he kicked yours.
I told him to come back and find me in a few months, and we go race on the track.
So what division are you like training for if you did the Olympics?
So right now I have my sights set on what they call a T64. That would be my classification of amputation. T64 long jump. So in order to do that, I need to, my next step would be a long jump blade. I have a training partner, who used to be on the track team here, football team here. He's still local. He's like a Louisiana legend. So he's been my training partner just about every day. Right now, my nerves are still acclimating to the high impact of that. So I haven't sprinted over 3 days in a week yet, just because it just hasn't felt great the next day. So it's literally a wake up and what am I going to do today based on how I feel? And not that I don't have an aim of a training plan, but I have to be adjustable in a way that I've never had to be before. And I've learned a lot. And at first I was really hard, and now it's almost like a little fun puzzle for me to figure out how much I can push it within a different realm, because I am a person who I will push the needle. And I say that because that's gotten me in trouble before. But I'm not trying to defy the physiological healing properties that is needed, but I understand there's not many amputees in the world that have the education that I have and have the resources that I have. So let me be the one to push the needle on that.
You're probably the patient versus the worst patient.
Yes. But you know what? I preface them. So the doctors that come into the hospital, I was like, hey, before you speak on like guidelines, and that came off very abrasive. That's not how I would speak to anybody. But, you get the general idea of like, hey, before you give your recommendation, the guidelines, I need you to know something. I'm not your normal patient, and I'm a border collie. So if you just say, hey, just go and, it'll be about 4 weeks and you don't go off of anything, no milestone based to progress that or have exit criteria for that. It's not how my brain works. So if you don't give me any exit criteria, I'm going to push the needle and I'll blow it out of the water. If you do, understand that I'm still going to cut that time in half because I'm not your normal.
I was going to say 2 weeks.
So and every single PT, doctor, nurse would giggle at me. And that's fine. And that's exactly what I've been doing. And to this day, we just had so the great thing about LSU is they've been so supportive. Like, God, like 172 font, put it on a windshield, on a billboard. Like, they have been the most supportive. And the hospital I was at has a close tie and relationship and partnership with LSU. And the head of the hospital called me a few months ago and was like, hey, we'd love to do a feature story on you about how well, our team is taking care of you through this process. And we'd like to bring them to a gymnastics meet. So I said, beautiful. So we worked on this story and they allowed me to bring all of my crew in from the hospital and like have the opportunity for them to come out on the gymnastics floor with me in the middle of 13,000 people and wave high and celebrate them for the care that they gave me. And it was so awesome. And that was the first time I had seen some people since I had gotten discharged from the hospital. So it was so cool to see them. And all of them were just like, dude, you're killing this. Like you're defying every timeline. You're changing the game. And that's all I want to do. Like now it's kind of evolved. I didn't choose this calling. This calling kind of chose me. And now I want to be the person that, can use it for good for people who maybe are not so lucky, for people who maybe don't have the resources I have, and just either be an inspiration to them or provide some educational resource for them, in some way, shape, or form down the road. So there's already some partnerships starting, and I'm sure that will evolve over the next few years. Definitely. As I really get the swing of things of how this operates, because I'm still learning every day. But it's been really fun to navigate.
Well, what I love for you from that conversation was that, isn't it cool that you know that you're in the right place to have that kind of support from the team around you? Like, you're like, okay, just to confirm that decision that you made. How long you been at LSU?
It's been just over 4 years. I've been back.
4 years. Yeah. So like to think about back to that decision, knowing, this is not, you weren't going into softball, whether you made it, and then to this day to how they support you. Like, that's pretty cool. And
absolutely.
you even kind of said it without saying it, is that you are a role model here, and there's going to be so many athletes younger than you that's going to be looking up to you, especially when you go on that Olympic field for that long jump. I can't wait. I know it's going to happen for you, because just the way that you talk about it, I can already see it. But, what does that feel like to, maybe this wasn't the role model that you were going to, you were aiming for, but like you said, it chose you. And so what does the next 6 months, because in 6 months, you'll be past your 1 year. Do you think that's going to bother you at the 1 year? And what does that look like after that? Or do you plan that far ahead?
I really don't. Right now, it's really in segments of literally 1 week at a time. In the fall, so from the day really before I got discharged, but and in the hospital, they were like, dude, you can discharge yourself at any time. I'm not kidding you, that came out of the nurse's mouth. And I was like, okay, well, I want to go home Saturday. She's like, okay. So even before the discharge, it was literally 1 day at a time up until probably about November, December. And then it became okay, let me just get through 3 or 4 days at a time. And then now I'm operating in a week at a time. And I really don't like to get ahead of myself in that. Either because I know where my head will go, and it will go in places I don't need it to in terms of not keeping me grounded. But I also know that I will miss where my feet are at right now. So I want to live each week at a time. And by the 1 year mark, maybe it'll be a month at a time. I don't know. But I haven't thought that far yet. The only thing I did think about when people, when I say this, they're like, oh boy. The owner of the jet skis, I said, I need you to reserve those jet skis for July 4th because I'm going back out on the water. And he was like, I knew you would. And everyone else is like, oh boy. And I've told people, I'm like, I'm not scared of that. I think part of the coolest things that you can overcome in life are a fear you can overcome. And I don't fear it. There is hesitation and wonder and what if. And I know I'm going to get out there and my stomach's going to be turning and I'm going to feel unwell. But I know that I'm going to enjoy it, and I know it's going to benefit me and heal me in ways after the fact, and actually get through a full day on the water and just having fun and not ending up with a life-changing traumatic injury. So,
one, I love that you're going to do a redo. Yes, because you deserve it. And two, that's just so brave. Because so many of us, when we have an accident or something, we never go back and revisit, until because of the PTSD of it and everything. And I think sometimes maybe that's what the one thing you need to heal from is going back and doing it again to be like, okay, this time it went the way it was supposed to, But all right, so back to coaching. Tell me what piece of advice you would give to the younger you, or to the girls out there that are looking to go into their dream is to be an LSU strength and conditioning coach too. What would you tell either the younger self of you or the girls out there that are thinking about this career choice?
I could answer this in so many ways. I think if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. I never felt qualified to come back to LSU. That was always a dream since the minute I got back into the collegiate field. That was always a dream of mine, but I thought it was where I would exit the field. I didn't think I would be there this soon in my career. But I also am a firm believer in you do the right work, you do honest work, and you work your butt off, then it'll fall in your favor whenever the time is ready. This field personally is very fast-paced, especially now it's cutthroat. There's really no safety net. There's really no longevity to it in terms of if, especially a school like this, I have 2 losing seasons, I could potentially get cut. So on one side of it, you can look at that as this pressure that'll fold you. But on the other side of it, I think pressure is a privilege on purpose, and that doesn't scare me. It goes back to the fear thing. I'm going to run straight to it. I'm not going to run away from it. And there's this piece that all this chaotic energy gives back to me that I can't explain. And I think it has been so evident in the past 8 months with the athletes that I oversee that the impact you can have goes way beyond just programming and sets and reps and exercise selection and, the few hours a week you actually see them in the weight room. If you really want to invest and really want to make an impact, this field has a great opportunity to do just that. And I think if you understand that you can learn from everybody and everything, regardless of a label of an institution, a label of a job title, whether it's a director, full-time, part-time, intern, unpaid, doesn't matter. Like, you can learn from anybody and everybody. I think you stay curious enough to continue to be passionate about what you do. And I think that's the beauty in it. And all this has led me to recalibrate my passion and why I do it. And the athletes that I oversee have been awesome with either helping me set up or tear down when I physically can't, or asking if I need help with things. Or like last week, I had a blister on my amputation site, and I went to go warm up the Beast Kids, and I could barely walk. I just, like, my prosthetic was on, but I was just hopping over. And the head coach put me up on his back and piggyback ride me all the way back. And somebody got a picture of it. And it's moments like that where I'm like, there's just another level of support that you just can't make up, And I think all of that is because they see that I try and do a genuine, honest job, and I try and treat everybody fairly, but nobody gets special treatment. They just get to be loved on. They get to be held accountable. Because I think accountability is one of the highest forms of love. And especially in such a moldable population that we have, especially now that will influence generations to come with their status. I think if we can teach them to be a great influence and make the right impact for the right reasons, and make sure that they have a good moral compass, like, those are all the intangibles aside from all the general qualities that we try and train in the weight room. Yeah, that was kind of a long-winded answer, but
no, that was awesome. As we close out this segment, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to say or comment? Or
I just think, in terms of if this podcast is on badass females, not only am I humbled to be considered in that group, but I also think, like, don't be scared to be a savage. Like, that doesn't mean you don't have a heart. You can be a savage with a heart. And
sure,
something I'm doing a podcast on tomorrow, and we're talking about females in a male-dominated field, and what came to mind is, like, you're a lioness in a lion's den. So, like, study them, understand them, break bread with them, train with them. But at the end of the day, like, just fucking earn your seat at the table, and then make sure you do a great job to continue to have that seat at the table. Sorry for my French. I'm just like no. I just think so many females get so timid over this, or they're so fearful. And I think you can be a savage with a heart, and you can treat people correctly, but you can also do it in a way that is going to want to make people move with you, and are going to make people want to come on board with you. And if enough people believe in what you're doing, that means you're doing something right. And if you have enough momentum, then build your army and go change the world. Like, nothing is too big, and your voice is never too small to make a difference.
I cannot agree with you more than 1,000%. And that's why you're a badass on this, because of that belief system. So I believe the exact same way. Like, go take it. We have a Rolodex, and I always say that the men only can open one browser at a time. And if you look at my browser currently, I have 30 tabs. And I'm like, and that's how we work. And that's why we are badasses, because of that multifunction and all that. So I love that. Well, I have loved getting to know you, and I am so honored that you gave me this opportunity to have you on this podcast.
Are you kidding me? I love talking about this stuff. So I appreciate that you want to take the time to hear my story, genuinely.
If anyone out there wants to reach out to you, is there a way they can get a hold of you? Instagram or?
Yeah, Instagram's probably my biggest go-to. My handle is Steel_Gil, STEEL_GUIL. I'm in and out of Facebook. I'm terrible at LinkedIn. I don't even know if I have a LinkedIn, to be honest with you. So Instagram is probably the best way. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Pleasure's all mine.